When Dinkabooey won YCS Birmingham with his Fire King deck, I wasn't surprised. I mean, your big dog was already telling you Fire King was a crazy good deck and it was good against the meta. Y'all just wasn't listening. But it also got me to think, what are some other really strong Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that can go against some of the top decks in the game and win? Big dog, I am TheCaliEffect, your Yu-Gi-Oh professor now, and today we're going to be talking about some Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that can beat the meta. Also, there will be a test. I need you guys to be prepared for the pop quiz at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that's your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Today, students, we are going to be talking about Update Monday, a particular time where I trick you into thinking that this was a Yu-Gi-Oh video, but overall, I snuck in a way to make you a better person above all else. And I said for the rest of this month, I will be talking about Black History Month because it seems nowhere that you go, they mention Black History Month. Another one of my favorite people in history was Nat Turner. Nat Turner also had that dog in him. This man was a carpenter and a preacher, and he even led a 4-day rebellion. A lot of people think that enslaved people were just happy being slaves, but that was the furthest thing from the truth. Just because these people were torn from their homeland and shipped across the world thousands of miles apart didn't mean that they still didn't have that dog in them and they didn't fight, run the fisticuffs. You see, Nat Turner to me always embodied the story of the underdog, that no matter the circumstances, it is still correct to fight, and even if you don't win, you at least know that you did the right thing. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and stop right here before I get more into the story because it really does make me angry about what happens next, but I strongly urge you guys to do some research on what these weirdos were doing back in the day. I'll even drop a subtle hint throughout this video, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. We're going to embody the underdog. While we may not always win the game, these particular Yu-Gi-Oh strategies are going to be built to beat some of the best decks in the game. We've seen both YCS Birmingham and YCS Orlando, as well as a plethora of regional events that have happened over the last few weeks. And for today's class, I've compiled a few strategies that actually have something going against some of the top decks. So let's go ahead and start off with the first one. When it comes to stopping one of the best decks in the entire game, Ryzeal, you're gonna need a few tricks up your sleeve. Currently, right now, the strongest version of Ryzeal is Ryzeal Fiendsmith, which can be really tricky to stop with hand traps. Stopping one part of Ryzeal means that they can go full Fiendsmith combo and vice versa, and sometimes it doesn't matter how many hand traps you throw at them, they'll do whatever they want anyways. But what players have been doing is taking an entirely different approach to being able to beat Ryzeal. Instead of playing a ton of hand traps in hopes of slowing them down, what players have been doing is playing board breakers. And one of the best decks in the game to play board breakers is actually White Forest. That's right, you Slifer slackers, White Forest is actually really good right now. Basically, how the White Forest monsters work is that they allow you to be able to discard spell and trap cards from your hand to be able to gain their effects. It means that even when you go first, cards like Metaltronus and Ultimate Slayer, which are really good against Ryzeal when you're going second, aren't so good when going first, don't really matter. You can send them to the graveyard to be able to activate your White Forest effects. And the deck is centered around being able to use your lower level White Forest monsters like LZ and Azamina LZ to be able to summon themselves, and your higher level White Forest monsters like Rusia and Sylvia as the tuner materials. If you're going against Ryzeal, you can completely shut them down from ever touching their Exceed summon by synchro summoning into Severa Wolf Tamer of the White Forest to be able to Book of Eclipse their monsters. And if you're ever going second, you can rely more on that board breaker approach, using those important cards to be able to disrupt their board, and then following up by using your White Forest cards with the dead ones or some of your other White Forest cards because they reset themselves back to the side of the field. White Forest has also been sneakily topping quite the few events. Its highest placing was last week at YCS Birmingham and the YCS Remote Duel Latin America, so it is a deck that is low-key tried and true and successful at the most competitive events. It also is the best deck to play the Fiendsmith and the Azamina engine. What I've been personally testing out with White Forest for so long is the Black Goat Laughs. I think the Black Goat Laughs is one of the strongest cards in the game because it prevents Ryzeal Detonator from ever getting its effects off in the first place. I usually use it in a deck that pairs well with Foolish Burial Goods, but just discarding it for your Azamina effects has never felt so good. I think that White Forest is 1000% one of those powerful Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that can compete, so if you're looking for a deck that is really good with board breakers, you should potentially give this one a try. Another great way to be able to combat Ryzeal is Memento. Now, Memento has been pretty much everywhere on my radar this format. I once thought it was going to be one of the best decks in the game, baby. And then it disappointed me at YCS Orlando. I then thought that the meme team was dead. The dream is over. And it surprised me in YCS Birmingham by securing more tops than almost any other deck. On top of that, the memes didn't just get top 64, they actually made it to top 16 inside of a 2,200 man tournament. That means a lot for a Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that was thought as an afterthought since YCS Orlando. The Bone Daddies can also take a board breaker style approach against Ryzeal. Because the deck isn't heavy on extra deck, you can play those cards like Ultimate Slayer and Metaltronus inside of the main deck, which gives you a way easier time with combating that deck, but there's a little bit more. The meme team has a monster named Memento Goblin, which may not seem like much, but it's actually huge. It means that Goblin Biker Grand Diddy Breakout can special summon Meme Goblin to your side of the field, but it also gives you access to a bigger Goblin engine. Goblin Biker Grand Entrance can add Memento Goblin from your deck to your hand, but you can also detach a material from one of your opponent's Ryzeal monsters to special summon it. This means that the Memento matchup naturally has ways to detach materials from Ryzeal monsters before it gets its main combo line going. It's one of the more convenient and secret things that this deck has going for itself that makes it a perennial contender. And it's also another one of the biggest reasons why I should have never gave up on the meme team. But let's not act like we haven't forgot about the elephant in the room, class. And speaking of elephant in the room, of course, like usual, I'll be uploading personal deck lists of these particular strategies on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. They ate him. The elephant in the room is that Ryzeal isn't the only deck that we need to worry about. Maliss is a crazy, strong Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that can banish multiple monsters in the graveyard with Bestials if not get its own combo going. It can also take advantage of that Nightmare Griffin lock, but another wrinkle that this deck can add is Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax, which is really hard to deal with from time to time. So what are some strategies that we could be using to be able to pound this deck's face in? And it's simple. Red Dragon Archfiend, the Master of Faster, the Gank of Disaster, Black Atlas. I'll stop coping now. You see, from what I realized, Maliss doesn't do really well against a strategy that's either A, not as reliant on the monsters in the graveyard, or B, can play the Dominus cards, and that has actually given me 2 more decks. I personally think that Primite is more than just Primite Blue Eyes. Primite may be one of the more underexplored engines that we haven't looked into in depth, but it has some really good cards to match up against Maliss well. Take, for example, one of Maliss's most feared cards is GWC06. This card is what holds Maliss together. It gives them their interruption on your turn. Most of the time it's used to be able to summon White Binder, which can banish 3 cards from either graveyard, tons of disruption, but also triggers the effect of Maliss P White Rabbit to be able to get their MTP07, which means that you're in for a lot of trouble. So 2 things here. Not only is the Primite engine more than likely unaffected by the Nightmare Griffin lock, seeing that it is a normal based Yu-Gi-Oh monster deck, Primite Drill Beam is one of the very few cards that can instantly check GW06 and not give them anything that they want for it. Now, Drill Beam does require you to reveal a Primite monster or a normal monster in your hand, but oftentimes if you're playing a Primite-based Yu-Gi-Oh deck, that shouldn't be too hard to do. What I'm suggesting is that we take Primite to the next level and we play something like Primite Umi. Okay, not Primite Umi, but Primite Phantasm. The Phantasm cards are a deck that only consists of a few normal monsters inside of the deck, and if you play your cards right, you can gain the full effects of Phantasm Spiral Power and Spiral Battle, allowing you to be able to destroy and negate your opponent's cards, and these cards can be activated from the hand. And the best thing about this is, like I said before, one of the biggest counters to Maliss is Dominus Impulse. This card prevents special summoning, which can be really good when they're trying to use cards like GW06 or a Maliss monster that's trying to bring itself back from banishment. I think the Dominus cards are going to be one of the keys to be able to beating and stopping Maliss, especially the non-reliance on monster effects. But that got me thinking, there's another Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that pretty much does the same thing, and this one's just a little bit more proven. Labyrinth is easily one of my favorite decks of all time. It's not because of the looks, the gimmicks, or aesthetics, it's simply because it's a fiend strategy. I know that they don't look like fiends, but I'm still a fiend connoisseur. And Labyrinth just so happens to play one of Maliss's biggest weaknesses. It doesn't interact with it monster per monster. What it does is that it takes its trap cards and pits them against your monsters. And what makes it even worse for Maliss is that it can search Dominus Impulse, its monsters can have targeting protection, and with every trap card that Maliss uses, they could just be helping Labyrinth. It's easily and sneakily one of the better decks in the game. Labyrinth can also search Artifact Sanctum, so if you ever needed an Artifact Scythe on demand, Maliss's biggest enemy, then this is a deck that actually can do that. I noticed one of the biggest problems in the game right now is that players are looking to how to beat a particular deck, not necessarily how to beat cards all the time. Dinkabooey proved at YCS Anaheim that yes, you need a strategy that can help you beat the decks, but being able to beat the cards is also just as equally as important. So for my last decks that can beat the Molcharmy cards and a lot of cards that people are playing, I actually don't like that I'm saying this, but it's been topping at a pretty decent rate. Stun.
Ah, man.
Stun actually has a lot of the things that we're looking for. The deck can play board breakers like Ultimate Slayer, Metal Tronus, and even evenly matched. And when it's going first, it puts your opponent in a really bad spot. Normal summon Fossil Dying Apache Cephalo is not going to trigger many of the Molcharmy cards. I genuinely hate that Yu-Gi-Oh has come down to this, but my students, if you guys are really trying to get that bag and get that win, do not let me hold you, and don't let a moral compass stopping you from beating a $6 million deck. To build a complete stun deck, main extra inside, it's gonna run you about like $50 or $60, my boy. Using that to be able to genuinely beat your opponent's $1,000 deck could never feel better. Now, the problem here is that stun can beat some of the best decks in the game, but some of the best players in the game can beat stun pretty easily. So you got to watch out what you're doing with this deck, as it does have an incredibly low ceiling and an incredibly low floor, and will frustrate players until they figure out how to beat it. But that's pretty much what I have for the Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that are beating the meta decks. I know that you have some. In fact, it's actually your pop quiz. I want you guys to post down below in the comment section, what are some strategies that you have been using to be able to beat the top decks consistently? And of course, if you got some other video ideas that you would probably like to see on the channel, go ahead and let me know. But until then, check out these videos so I could catch you on the next one.